There is a new controversy over a film that's going to be shown at the National September 11th Museum when it opens in about a month's time. It's called The Rise of Al-Qaeda. It uses the words Islamist and Jihad. And a group that watched it, it's 7 minutes long, they say they're concerned and have written a letter to the museum director saying, quote, unsophisticated visitors who do not understand the difference between Al-Qaeda and Muslims may come away with a prejudiced view of Islam, leading to antagonism and even confrontation toward Muslim believers near the site. They simply want the movie not there, not to be played. What about that? Ken Coleman, a radio host on The Ken Coleman Show and author of One Question. Jessica Ehrlich's an attorney and Democratic strategist, and good morning to both of you. This is, I don't know what the museum's going to do, but Ken, what do you think about the confusion between Islam and Al-Qaeda, between Islam and jihadists, and whether or not you can tell the two apart?
Well, I think this is an important conversation, Bill, because our country has never been more pluralistic and connected at the same time, so it's impossible not to be offended. And so I appreciate what this interfaith group is trying to do, but I think they're missing the opportunity to demonstrate a better narrative. Let me explain from a personal standpoint. I'm a Christian, and I don't have time to list out all the outrageous things that have been said or done by Christians, which then paint me as a Christian in a bad light, and it certainly offends me. I've had conversations with friends on this issue. We can either be offended or provoked. And what I mean by provoked is when something happens like this that's offensive, that we think, oh, this offends me, I need to be proactive, not reactive. And I think this group is being reactive by protesting and say, well, we've got a problem here, you're going to offend somebody, instead of saying, how do we work with the 9/11 memorial to tell the story of peaceful Muslims that live in America, that come to America, and do not represent this radical slice, if you will, of Islam.
It's a great point, Ken, and you haven't seen the film, neither have I, and Jessica has not seen it either. Is there a place for this film, Jessica, or is this group just overly sensitive?
I mean, I think there's absolutely a place for the film, particularly in the context of the museum, the work that it's going to be doing, and the educational value it'll have for generations to come. I know that is the main concern here. And, you know, as someone who I actually was working in Lower Manhattan in One New York Plaza down on September 11th. So I was one of the folks who was there on the ground, and I watched the second plane go into the towers. And it was a turning point in my life as it was in my generation. But the museum is going to be there for generations to come. And it really bears the burden of making sure that it has really historic and objective purpose and lets people know what was happening and what the reasons were behind the attacks.
You know,
and my understanding is that's what's happening.
To that point, Jessica, here, Joe Daniels is president of the museum. This is what he said in part. From the very beginning, we had a very heavy responsibility to be true to the facts, to be objective, and in no way smear an entire religion when we are talking about a terrorist group. And that goes to your point, Jessica.
Yeah, and clearly, you know, we've seen, especially in Manhattan, there were issues regarding the mosque that was going to be built near the memorial. It's a very sensitive subject for many of us who lost friends, loved ones, colleagues at that time. But it's also important for us, you know, it's the reason that I left my life there in New York and went into policy and politics. It was a life-defining moment for so many of us. But in particular, it's the opportunity for us to recall and remember always that as Americans, we have an incredible gift and grace that we have been given to have our freedoms, our liberties, and that we come from a place not of fear and hatred like those who attacked us, but out of the ability of our love and the ability that we have to come on and disagree on shows like yours and talk about issues. And we serve as that light for the rest of the world. That's what we take going forward.
I think
and we have to understand historically.
It's very well stated. I agree with you. And while you were talking, Ken was shaking his head in agreement. You know, and Ken, I just want to come back to you because that whole statement about being true to the facts and how critical that is, not just to our own national history, but to the world's history.
Yeah, Bill. That's right. Bill, I sit here in Atlanta just miles from the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, and I've been there with my boys. And as a white American, as I walked through that museum, I was greatly offended by what white people did to my black brothers and sisters. But I can't be offended to the point of erasing history, and so I walk away from that experience like our Muslim brothers and sisters should with the 9/11 memorial, to say, I won't allow that to happen again if I can keep it from happening. We need to remember history. History matters, and the facts matter.
To both of you, thank you. I don't know what the museum's going to do. It's going to be an interesting decision for them. They've got a lot of interesting decisions, frankly, and they're going to get a lot of attention in the coming month. In the days before they open. Jessica, thank you for your input. Ken, thanks to you as well.
Oh, thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.